Hey guys, it's me Taylor again. It's been a while since I've made a movie, and I just want to show you guys another film on my book related stuff. And today we're going to talk about how to write a book. Because I get asked a lot of questions by people that want to write stories, that are trying to write a story, but they don't really know how to quite get there from where they're at now. So I'm going to answer some questions and kind of go by a simple step-by-step guide on how to write a book and get published. Okay, so the first step to writing a book is you gotta get the ideas down. Honestly, for me to come up with ideas for my book, it takes a while. It's funny, sometimes it takes me like a few years to actually figure out what the story's gonna be. Take some time to think of the characters. For instance, like for Darien, it actually was based off of a short story that I wrote when I was like 11 or something like that. So I was pretty young, and then eventually my ideas, like when I was like sleeping or drawing, just the ideas kept on whirling, and eventually that, let's see, maybe like a 30-page short story for an English class ended up being a 400-page story. It's kind of big, and now that I think about it in retrospect, I could have made it a little bit shorter because I put a lot of extra jazz in there. But yeah, so you gotta get the ideas down. It might start out small, like a little tiny seed, and then eventually it'll just bloom into this huge, awesome idea. It takes time. Don't get frustrated if you're not quite sure how your story's going to pan out. Eventually, just once you kind of think about, okay, so let's see, I want to write a story about pirates. Well, that's a good place to start. You just gotta kind of think about what theme you want to do. For me to figure out characters, what I do is usually I'm just drawing, or maybe I'll watch a movie or read a book, and sometimes I just get ideas like, oh, that'd be kind of a cool character. Usually I come up with the physical appearance first, which is kind of funny, and then as I draw that character in all my doodles and sketches, the character's personality starts to come through, and I kind of think about in my head, like, how would he act, or she, how they talk, what kinds of things do they like, what things do they not like so much. So, like I said, everything just starts out a little bit small, in my case, and then, with the more time you spend on thinking and, developing your characters and your story, it'll eventually start to roll into like a giant snowball down a hill, and it'll just get bigger and bigger as you go further along. And this is probably the hardest part, is actually starting your story. I know for me, when I started not writing Darien so much, but writing my pirate book right now, I was kind of scared. I'm like, ooh, I'm starting something. It's all starting to happen now. So you just gotta take that big step and just start writing. I was scared when I wrote the first chapter because I'm like, oh god, this is where it all happens. But then you get really excited because, you're starting to accomplish your dream right now. You're writing a book, and there are no rules. You can write your story however the heck you want to. And I think it's so much fun. So yeah, just get started. It might feel a little awkward at first, especially if it's your first book. And in my case, writing this pirate book, this is my second book I've started writing since I wrote Darien, which initially I was writing that when I was very young, and I used to write stories all the time, just little short stories. And then I wrote this one after so many years. I'm just like, oh, okay, here we go. And so I started writing this book, and eventually I, just started working on it in little increments every day. There was a time where I kind of had a dry spell. I kind of lost my ideas. I had so much going on at the time with starting nursing school, and there was a lot of family illness, so my well for my ideas, it just went dry. There was a drought, so I kind of got confused and I didn't know what to do next, so I had to step away from writing for a while. And sometimes that's a good thing when you're feeling like you feel like you hit a stumbling block. You don't really know where to go next. So take a break if you need to, and eventually you'll find that inspiration comes to you. I don't really have a particular way to just say how it'll come to you, but maybe it'll just come by like watching a movie or playing an awesome video game. You just start feeling that creativity spark again. You're like, Okay, cool, I thought of an idea. So, do that, and for the next part, just write every day. Just write a little bit every day. You'll have some days, I know for me, there'll be some days where I might write maybe a page or two a day. Just a little bit. It's hard when you're busy, when you're balancing out like maybe a job or a family, or in my case, nursing school. I don't have any time to write when I'm in nursing school. I'm hoping that'll change this semester though, um, because I have technically a 3-day school week now compared to 5, so that's gonna be really nice, and I'm hoping to foster my hobby of nursing, not my nursing, I'm obsessed with nursing, writing a little bit more. Thirsty. And then there'll be days where I'll probably write like 10 pages, or I'll spend like hours a day working on it. And I think that's honestly when I feel like it gets most in depth, my stories. So there isn't really any right or wrong way to write a story. You just have to do it and stay committed to it. That was my problem. I was not committed to writing because my commitment was nursing, which when you're a nursing student, when you're in nursing school, you're married to nursing. And I almost had a divorce from writing for a while, and I'm glad I'm back into it now. I feel like I'm more creative with my writing than ever, and I'm excited for this book to get published. Alright, so let's go to the next part. Okay, you officially wrote your first story, your first rough draft. This is your rough draft. So obviously there's going to be a lot of mistakes. As you go through it, you'll see that maybe there's some things you want to change. That's been happening with the book I've been writing, which eventually I started to have a very supernatural twist on this story that was a little bit more historical and not so magical-ish. So just go through it, go through a few chapters every day and just read it very objectively. Cut out any fluff, make sure that you got some basic grammar problems taken care of. Granted, you'll want to have someone read over your work. You'll want to have like an editor or a dear friend. I was really fortunate for my first story. I had a dear family friend that knew a professional editor, so she edited my book without charge, and she was so helpful. Her name's Mary Jo Reiger, and I love her. She's great. I hope I can meet her in person one day. So even just like send a few chapters out to your friends, like a little manuscript, and just kind of ask and see what they think. I am doing that with my friends right now. I've sent to good friends that love to read or love to write, and they're giving me feedback, because the idea might sound really cool in my mind and everything might seem great, but then maybe to someone else they might find something that could be tweaked, something they don't quite understand. Obviously they're not in my head, so I know everything that's going on, but maybe what I have written down doesn't quite translate to the other readers. So you definitely want to share your work, even if it's just a rough draft, your first draft. That you'll learn so much just by doing that, and you'll get some great feedback. And then you've got the next part. The next part you have to do now is of course, after having someone edit your book, you need to fix all the corrections. Go back a few times. Even without having my book being edited right now, I've probably read it about 3 or 4 times just to make sure I've got the kinks figured out. But like I said, the next step is now to go take that plunging step and find someone to publish your book. Yeah, you have to get to that part. It's a little bit intimidating at first, and how I managed to start getting my book published was I went on the internet, I typed it into Google, and what I typed into that search bar was, for my fantasy book, I looked up, fantasy, young adult, teenage-aged book publishers. And you get this giant array of all these different publishers from A to Z. Some of them, at the time I was really young, so they wouldn't accept manuscripts from someone that was under 18 at the time, so that's understandable. Really read their contracts, read their guidelines for your submissions. Normally they ask for 2 to 3 chapters. Send them a synopsis of the story, and give them basic ideas, what's the rating, what's the target audience, how many pages are you shooting at. So get all your information and make sure that every time you submit a piece of work to up to a publisher, make sure you've got all the guidelines down. Otherwise, they might not even accept it, even if you have a great piece of work right there. And for me, I got rejected probably about 10 times. Don't feel bad if you get rejected. It doesn't mean that your work is a piece of crap. Let's think about a lot of authors and even musicians that got turned down so many times, like the Beatles or J.K. Rowling. They've been beaten down a few times, but look at how amazing they are. So just don't give up, be persistent, and just keep on trying. Try different publishers, and in my case, I didn't give up. I didn't feel bad that I got turned down, and I got published by Solstice Books, which was formerly called Hearts on Fire Books. And it was awesome. And let's go to the next part. Okay, so on to the publishing aspect. There are a few different routes that you can take. I forgot to mention this earlier. You could do self-publishing, which you can do if you're having a hard time getting your book published by an actual publishing company. It's a little bit expensive, but you can strike some deals. So yeah, you can do that. My necklace is crooked. It still is, okay. So yeah, just be persistent. If you do self-publishing, great. It's expensive, but if you have the means to do it, then certainly by all means go for it. But if you can, I would highly suggest, looking for a publisher. Okay, so back on track to where we were earlier. Sorry, I'm scatterbrained. Okay, so once a company actually, they send you that email or that letter telling you that they will accept your book, yeah, you might just dance a little bit. I was pretty excited. I jumped around when I found out the news. So when you go on from there, read their contract. Some companies, you really need to take a good look at what they are going to give you, because sometimes they won't give you the share of money that you deserve. Sometimes they won't give you your rights for, the book title, or if your book ever becomes a movie, they might take all of your rights. So keep as much of the rights as you can. I know for Daring, I had all the rights. They asked me, how I wanted my book cover to look, and I wanted it to look like this. And it was like that ever since I was younger. So they listened. And, make sure you got the movie rights just in case your book ever does become a huge blockbuster hit. And once you get all that figured out, you might have to pay money, you might not have to. Just like I said, read the guidelines. And boom, you struck a deal, you signed a contract, and your book is published. I know what I said was kind of long and rambling, but it's actually not that hard and complicated of a process. Just to keep it short, come up with your ideas, just keep on thinking, don't stop thinking, don't stop being creative. Take time with your book. You don't need to feel like you have to rush to get it all done, because rushed work doesn't tend to be as well, not as good. So, take your time, really develop your characters. I'll make a movie later on, maybe on how to make characters and how to help with a good plot. And then, edit your book, edit yourself, then have other friends or family, even have a teacher, just let them look at it, let them give you good feedback. Don't feel bad if they want you to change something or whatever. Then go on and, submit as many manuscripts as you can to as many people. Don't worry about getting rejected. Everyone gets rejected. I don't know how many people have not been rejected by a book company. Or if you can self-publish your book. And then from there, once you get a contract, read it really good. Make sure you keep as many rights as you can. It's better that way. And, oh yeah, and for some publishing places, you'll need an agent. I didn't really have an agent, so I didn't really have to worry about that. So I'll probably talk about that in another video. And then from there on, boom, you have a book that's published. So, kudos to you. For all you aspiring writers, just do your best, have fun with it. That's what matters most. And, don't stop believing. And you can do this. If I can do it, you guys can do it. So, anyone can be a writer. You just gotta have the heart, you gotta have the passion, and be committed to, following your dreams and learning that there are no boundaries when it comes to writing. That's what makes it awesome. I'm Taylor, and thanks for watching this really scatterbrained video on how to write a book and get it published.